We're the Vinyl Verdict. We're big Badfinger fans. We've been talking about how much Badfinger material we've had over the last year or so. Going back to, we did Gwent Gardens, we did the Tom Evans I Am Myself, we did the Ivy's release, Head First. But we didn't go all the way back and do the first review on Y&T Music, which has been the label that's been giving us a distribution for all these different releases. And that was actually a tribute CD for Pete Ham called Shine On. And it was the first time that Y&T Music put out something that was part of Badfinger catalog. And it's actually 2 CDs, 35 tracks, believe it or not, covering basically every Pete Ham song in Badfinger, as well as some of the solo and unreleased songs. So it's really an impressive collection if you're a Pete Ham fan. This was Rich's dream, the head of Y&T Music. He always wanted to put out a tribute disc for Pete Ham. And he finally got the opportunity. He recruited a lot of musicians in the South Florida area and beyond. Big acts like Melanie, who was a big 70s act. She's passed away since. She did Without You. It's a really nice collection, full, kind of fold out. And so this became a bit of the standard for the releases that have come out since that time. And so I just wanted to go back and give this a little bit of attention. There have been a couple tribute discs over the years. I remember the first one, I think the first big one we had was that Come and Get It one in 2000.
Yes.
And then Joey actually kind of commissioned a version of cover songs from bands he knew, and I think he even appeared on 1 or 2 of the songs. But this is the first time we're getting really deep into the Pete Ham catalog and a lot of his songwriting.
What separates it from every other one is it's focused on one member in this case, and it's focused on the Pete Ham written songs. It's not looking at his previous work, it's not looking at the Badfinger work, it's kind of putting it all together. And so it's a real journey you go on, and I'm not familiar with a lot of these artists, but I'm an older guy. But they really, I think, did justice to the songs, and each one has its specific blend. Some work better than others, but I think everybody that did it had a feeling for the person who wrote these songs, for Pete. That comes through, and I do think it's a true tribute, and it makes you think of the guy who wrote them all.
I will say, compared to other ones, I think they really try to reinterpret a lot of these songs rather than just cover them as we kind of do. I like to just play it exactly the way Badfinger played it and try to recreate it as closely as possible. But there's also a lot of value in this, which is, changing the arrangements, accentuating certain parts of the song over others, changing the genre of some of these songs even, and the pacing and all of that, and it makes them accessible to different people, and it makes you kind of hear them and appreciate them in different ways.
Which you have to be very careful about, whether it be Beatles or, in my opinion, Badfinger songs. It's done well because they do it justice, even though it does depart in many cases, and they interpret it, but it's impressive.
Yeah, they're very professional recordings too. Some of the ones that stand out to me, I like the version of Without You.
I can't forget this evening or your face as you.
They kind of did a slightly lighter weight, faster paced version. It's not a cover of the Nilsson version, it's a cover of the Badfinger version, and I appreciated that. Lonely You was perfect. That one makes me afraid to ever cover it because that is a perfect 1-to-1 recreation. Similar to Carry On. I think they nailed the guitar sound and just the solo in there and everything. In some cases, just the production is almost 1-to-1. It feels like they were in the same studio or something with the same instruments. But then other ones, they change up a lot. So they're knocking down our home. I thought that was really cool. There was a ska kind of reggae version of that. It really made the song bounce. Very different than the original. But I love that, and I love that kind of music. So it felt very 90s ska. A lot of the songs have more of a Britpop kind of feel in the production. And again, I think most of these artists are from Florida, but just in terms of maybe some of the vocal effects and things like that. And Crimson Ship. Third British invasion kind of sound to some of it. Dennis was interesting. It doesn't really fully slow down. It still covers all 3 parts of the song. Again, a little bit of a reinterpretation and kind of maybe emphasizing the middle part more and then building everything around that. One of the only versions I wasn't a big fan of is Midnight Caller. They basically, it's some type of weird electronic effect where it's almost auto-tuned to stay within the key but with a full octave. So it almost makes the whole melody one note, which I think is doing a disservice because that's an incredible melody.
They just know
it's an interesting effect. And again, I think it's cool. I'd love to hear kind of electronic versions of these songs. That one maybe goes a little bit too experimental for me, but maybe that's what the artist is known for. And then Piano Red. Where else are you going to get a cover of Piano Red?
No.
And I think it's really cool. It's really funky and nice. The way that it feels more like that Mad at Spam, but then the riff that gets a little bit repetitive in the actual song, where like the bass and the guitar, only the bass is doing that in this version. And it lets the piano kind of go off and do more boogie stuff. Gotta say that no matter what version, there's two versions on here. One of them is kind of a pop version, recreating the version we're familiar with. Another one is world music, sitar and very Hindustani style singing. There's a whole middle section where they're actually singing in Bengali too. Great to hear musicians all over the world showing gratitude towards Pete Ham. The biggest shock of all this maybe was when I heard Rich say that they covered every Pete Ham song. And I'm like, no, that can't be right. It's only 2 CDs. And they actually did cover every song that he wrote. 30 songs or something on Badfinger albums in those 4 years is actually kind of shockingly lower than I would have expected. But it just kind of shows you the weight that those songs have. Notably, not any covers from the Ivies days, which is a little bit interesting. Opens with No More. So, they're clearly considering the full bounds of his career, but a big focus on the Badfinger era, which, I think is fair from a songwriting perspective. That stuff is much more interesting to play.
Yeah, and then the Ivies era, you would need a whole set of double CDs because there's quite a few.
Oh, and all the proceeds going to mental health I thought was a nice touch. Yeah, so anyway, if you finish Head First and you're waiting for the next release and you've already listened, definitely go back and listen to this first Y&T Music release. Gives you a lot of appreciation for the Pete Ham stuff, and it'll probably have you going back and listening to Badfinger more too.